Let's begin.
Hey there, scary story fanatics. Welcome back to Cleaving Thought from Bone with your host, Sociopathic. Tonight, I bring you something new. Actually, the start of a mini-series that I've begun writing. So sit back, relax, and get ready for that which scares us all. In the dark.
I've been stuck here now. Trapped here. For 3 days, I think. I could be wrong about that. It feels like forever since I've seen the sun. These tunnels and rocky passages wind maddeningly and twist in on themselves in such a way that I can never hope to find my way out to the surface once again. And more than that, even if I could navigate my way through the pitch and claustrophobic unknown, they wouldn't let me leave. However, that is now, and what happens next seems less important than it ever has, especially faced with what could have been, what was, and every decision, every course redirection and passive action that led me to that which I now endure. I don't have many friends. I never have. I was always the loner kid, keeping to myself because I never seemed to quite fit in, until eventually I preferred it that way. Isolation gave me an observer's perspective on those that would call themselves my peers, even if they knew I existed. In separating myself from them, watching them go about their day, admiring and coveting each and every one of those social interactions, seemed to elevate me as much as it segregated me. I suppose I felt like I was above them, sneering at their outward appearances and predictable mistakes. It would seem that I was no better than the rest of them. Fate can certainly be cruel sometimes. I have one friend, though. Had a friend. His name was Dave. Dave was one of those kids that also didn't have many friends, aside from a few others who could easily be counted among the social rejects. No, they were not my friends. I am an outcast among outcasts. But Dave was always kind to me, and though I wasn't his only friend, he was mine. Since I moved to this shitty town, surrounded by desolate fields and thick forests, I hadn't found much to do except go over to my only friend's house every chance I got. We'd play video games, watch movies, tell jokes, but one of the main things we liked to do was explore the woods behind Dave's house. Dave used to tell me this ghost story that I never really believed, saying the forest behind his house had been visited by aliens. He never saw them, but he insisted he saw the woods glowing an eerie blue one night. And before he could investigate the next day, the light had vanished and not returned since. For some reason, he was convinced that he could find some sort of proof somewhere amongst the trees and underbrush, far behind his house. I always took it as more of a silly game that we played as an excuse to explore those woods and fuel our imaginations. So imagine my surprise when I went to his house a few days ago, and he told me that on the previous night, the lights had returned. And not only that, this time, he heard a sound coming from the forest as well. A blundering sound as incomprehensible as it was foreign. A sound that shouldn't have been there, that didn't make any sense, belonging to nothing that he'd ever heard of before. But it reminded him of something else. As we walked amongst the trees and dense vegetation, he told me how the sounds reminded him of something else the kids always around here whispered about. Hearing and seeing strange things lurking in the forest at night. No one had ever seen any eerie lights, so Dave hadn't put it together until now. Under normal circumstances, I would have assumed this to be the talk of over-imaginative children my age, but hearing it, all of it together, and then turning the corner and seeing that large cave at the same time that Dave did, it was hard to refute his claims. We both stood there, resolute, not saying a word, and after a few more moments, and a bit of goading each other, we ventured closer and closer, until we stepped inside. The cave was dark. Dave wasn't sure if this is where the light that he had seen the night prior had come from, but we had never seen this cave before. We had never ventured this far into the woods before either. The cave got smaller and smaller as we ventured further in. We were about to turn back, assuming we were approaching the end of this cavernous rock shaft, but that's when we saw it. An eerie blue glow emanated from the end of the cave that had gotten narrow and thin, revealing a small passage forward. One we would both have to crawl in to continue on, even for children our size. I wanted to turn back, but Dave insisted that this is what he had seen, and that we had come this far. He wasn't about to turn back now. I still protested, but when he crept in on all fours inside that small tunnel, I knew I couldn't let my friend face whatever it was down there alone. So I followed, albeit resentfully. The tunnel turned and twisted. It narrowed and widened, and there were many offshoots and alternate passages, but we both instinctually followed that blue light. The light soon began to grow with intensity, and then suddenly dimmed. As it grew fainter, it once again began to glow brighter, and then dim again. The light was pulsating. As it began to dim a third time, I followed closely behind Dave. A horrible realization washed over me. What if the light decided to go out suddenly? What if there was no light to help show us the way back out? I began to panic, now very deep inside the winding cavern. I was right about to speak up, when I heard that sound again. This time it was louder. It sounded like wailing. Not like people crying out in agony, but more the sound of something trying to mimic human noises. And this acute difference is what made my hair stand on end. Dave and I both stopped in our tracks, sure that something sinister resided in wait for us. I anxiously told Dave that I wanted to leave, like right now. I even turned away in an effort to escape those tunnels for the surface above. However, when I turned to run away, expecting Dave to follow, I was stopped short when Dave himself gripped me. I asked him what was wrong, thinking he had something important to say or show me, but I was way off base. Dave turned and smiled at me, only something was terribly wrong. His skin shifted and bubbled, and the shape of his head and body seemed to bulge in the wrong places, distorting how he once looked. The thing gurgled and smiled. His eyes glowed a brilliant blue, and as that shifting skin on what was his face began to slowly slip and melt away, I'd finally realized that this was not Dave. I screamed and tried to get away, but it was no use. The creature gripped me tighter and threw me further down the hole/corridor in front of us. I grabbed what remained of its clothes, and we both tumbled together. We tussled and struggled on the ground, and the thing had thrown me against a rocky wall. I fought back as best I could while still trying to get away. The misshapen, blackened mass beneath that false skin slipped away entirely, and I knew that this had never been Dave. I turned, but the thing grabbed my ankle and I fell forward onto the ground. I could feel the thing climbing on top of me from behind as I lay face down in the dirt. I reached forward and felt something solid and rigid as the monster turned me over to face it. I gripped the object tight and struck it where its head would be, tossing it to the ground beside me. I climbed on top of it and repeatedly used the large rock I held in both my hands to clobber and crush that thing's skull. I thought it was over, and I was relieved. But as I now took a breath and looked around me, I could make out faint murmurs in the dark and slight movement. As my eyes adjusted, I saw a faint bioluminescent light emanating near some large piles of moss and mold, and then I saw them. That wasn't mold. Those were people. Horrified, I leaned in to get a closer look, and I didn't recognize all of them, but a few I did, such as Dave's neighbors and a few kids from my school who I thought had moved away. It finally dawned on me. That thing hadn't been Dave. In fact, the night prior, when he saw that light, that was likely the last thing he would see, and I confirmed this when I found the corpse of my friend, his real body. He wasn't covered in mold like the rest. He wasn't disfigured and riddled with pustules of foreign matter across his body. Dave was simply torn to shreds. I don't think the townspeople are being turned or copied. I think whatever this is, whatever caused this, masqueraded as my friend to lure me here, such like it had done with many times before with these other people. And now, that thing was dead. I was safe, and I hoped I hadn't contracted whatever body-eating disease the rest of those people had. But I knew none of that mattered. And over the course of many hours, or even days, I don't really know for sure, because I lost track of time. I wandered in too deep, and I know I'll never find my way out of here. And the only company I keep is that of the human compost that lay deep in the lowest chambers, waiting for more of us to feed it. So whatever you do, if you find this, don't go into any caves alone. Don't wander the unknown darkness with hopeful reverie. You do not know that which waits for all of us in the dark.
Well, if you thought shedding light on the darkness would make you feel better, it just might not. But I won't leave you in the dark. Make sure to come back again next Saturday for more of that gore galore. And until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can catch you all again next Saturday.
Social media can be very unpredictable, especially regarding horror content. If this content gets removed, all new content will be simultaneously presented on various websites provided in the description to this video. Make sure to follow me in other digital spaces so that you never miss out on the terror. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment and hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy what's here, consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. Writing is a dream of mine, and it's all of you that make that dream come true.